Hello everyone, hope you're having a good week. Now we're about halfway through the week. I went out to thrift stores again this morning after the post office, did kind of the usual rounds, a couple places nearby, and the drought definitely continues a little bit better today overall, but yeah, it's been the same kind of thing, actually an unprecedented drought at the favorite Goodwill bargain outlet that we go to. There were now some bins, a whole line against the wall, that have not moved for a week now, officially a week, a full 7 days, and I've never seen that in over a decade of going to that, not even close. That's the longest by far that there's ever been, just bins of junk, what's leftovers, sitting there. Never seen anything like that before. Always they've been taken out, something switched over, even if a lot of new stuff didn't come out. The old stuff was taken out and out of the way. I've never seen anything like it. It's crazy. There's the usual tension that's been building every time I go now. The same two people that were yelling at each other about t-shirts and stuff last time were yelling at each other again. As soon as we came in, the manager guy was screaming at one of the workers to go home because he was just off his rocker, completely drunk. He was clearly drunk. You could smell it, you could see it, the way he was moving and talking. He was drunk, plastered. So it was overall just wow, that's not a great start. But I did find some stuff. It was okay, and I went to a couple other places. So first off, I found in with the DVDs, some stuff, nothing great, but when I'm paying a quarter to at most 30 cents by weight, that's worth picking up, but nothing too awesome. Arrested Development Season 3. Glee Season 1, Volume 1, Superman, the Max Fleischer versus Monsters and Villains. This is still, I think, the best animated version of Superman overall. It's such a great classic. I love the style of animation. And we have the Date Night 4 movie collection, so 4 romantic movies for date night. I've only seen 2 of these, the bottom 2. And only really liked one of them. Best Friend's Wedding is a fun movie, but yeah, little thing there. And then I found in with the books just a couple of things. One of the American Girl doll mystery books, Ghost Stories in time for Halloween, for some kids' ghost stories, and one that I picked up, wasn't sure about, but I looked up and getting it for what I got, it was worth it. But Rosemary Rogers' Love Play, a novel. So worth grabbing, mostly because there's nothing else there. That was it. Went to the next location, and this was the community aid that I go to once or twice a month. Always try and see. Usually find nothing because their prices are out of control, but I always go just because that PS1 find that I had, that was amazing. Greatest find I've ever had, so that makes me go back just in case. I did find one thing worth getting. That was it. I was there for a while looking through everything. Found one thing, though, it was worth getting because it's half price day. Still has an old sticker on it here, I'll have to try and get off, but Rurouni Kenshin Season 3 box set. So anime DVDs are usually pretty good getting, and they had this at a decent price to begin with. They had it at $16, so I paid $8. Still more than I usually like for picking up DVD sets and whatever, but for what it is, it's still definitely a good deal. That's all I got there. Went to the next location for another half price day. This one we do try and go to more frequently for half price day because they tend to have an okay book selection. Nowhere near what they used to have. It used to be they had 3 double-sided rows of books, a decent amount, and now it's 1 single-sided row of books. I mean, that's just a huge decrease, and it's almost never full. So they have maybe at most usually 15 to 20% of what they used to have at this location, and consistently. So I don't know, the books are just not coming in there, but occasionally they have some stuff. We found some kids books last time and some Star Trek, which is cool. This time found 4 R.L. Stine, 1 Ghost of Fear Street, and 4 Goosebumps. Nothing too awesome, but they're decently priced, and then at 50% off too. That was really good. So in total today I only spent about $15 on everything I got. Okay, not super great for a morning out, especially considering I went to 3 locations, but thankfully they weren't super far apart, and it wasn't a ton of time, so pretty okay, but it's just, yeah, been kind of, I don't know, lately as far as the selection, and people have been nuts. So it's like you have to factor that into. But that's kind of everywhere right now, where people are just angry and grumpy and impatient and terrible, and every place is understaffed, and people just are not understanding about that and scream at the few staff that are there, or doing their best to do what they can. So just people are horrible, and going out in the world and dealing with them is horrible, because it just, yeah. So anyway, that's it for now. That's what I found this morning. One thing that cropped up, a couple gaming things that cropped up. One is Atlas. The 25th anniversary celebration thing has officially started, and there's all kinds of like wallpapers you can download for your phone or your PC, your tablet or whatever. And there's some 25th anniversary merchandise coming out, and they announced a concert that's going to be taking place, and that's it. They didn't do anything with the game announcements, but they have been clarifying that stuff is going to be trickling out. It's not like it's going to be one big event and they show everything, which I think was the initial assumption. That was my initial assumption way back when they first were talking about it months and months and months ago. But it's going to be information trickling out over a period of time to celebrate the anniversary. And I think the one thing that's been keeping any big game announcements under wraps is that the new Shin Megami Tensei 5 has yet to be released, and I feel like, especially if they are going to be releasing or even just announcing any Switch ports of like Persona games and things like that, I feel like maybe they don't want to share that right now and perhaps overshadow SMT5. I feel like even though they're very different audiences, there is some crossover, but I feel like that's probably why they kind of held off on that until that releases, and they did talk about December being another and the next set of announcements, so I feel like maybe then we'll be more likely with some of the game announcements, because that's after SMT5 releases, and then we'll get some more into that. So it's going to be a slow burn with the Atlas stuff trickling out there. And the other thing is we are finally going to be getting a Nintendo Direct. I am super hyped for this one. I still really think at this point, because we didn't see anything last time, I think we're going to see Xenoblade Chronicles 3 here. I think that's what we're going to see. There's going to be a lot of other Nintendo stuff coming up. The last Smash Fighter, I think, and all kinds of other things, and Metroid Dread's coming out now, and they've been hyping the heck out of that everywhere. But I think it's going to be a really, really good Direct. I have very high expectations for this one. Just they're focusing very much on Switch games coming out this winter. That usually encapsulates very end of this year, very beginning of next year. So I'm looking forward to that. I think there's going to be some cool stuff, maybe even some surprises that I wasn't thinking were going to show up. Could be good, but I think this is going to be a pretty killer one, because the Switch has been knocking it out of the park, and they've been taking big advantage, especially in Japan, with the shortage of the PlayStation 5 all over the place. Is still doing fairly well, but they can't keep up with demand, and the Switch is just chugging along, and the new model of that and everything is out. So the Switch has been really, really pushing some great sales, and I think a lot of developers and especially a lot of publishers that maybe haven't been on board with the Switch for one reason or another have been getting more on board and porting more stuff over, remastering some old games, kind of getting that stuff out to the Switch. And maybe we'll see more classic Square stuff, because a lot of that has been coming out, and there was a recent leak slash rumor, give or take with a grain of salt kind of thing, talking about the possibility of some older Square soft titles coming out through Square Enix now. One of the rumored ones was a remaster, not a full remake, but a remaster of Final Fantasy Tactics and Chrono Cross from the PS1. Those would be awesome. Tactics I'd be less excited for, just because the original version is really awesome, and I have it on PSP, and I really like that version as well. So it's like I probably wouldn't buy it for a third time, because those two I'm fine with having. Chrono Cross I definitely would grab, like if that was on the Switch, especially if they did a Chrono Cross and Chrono Trigger like collection, the two of them, and just did like the Final Fantasy VIII level of remastering, just to kind of smooth out some little more detailed character models and some things, like not just a huge overload of changes. I think that could be really cool, because that's an amazing game, and I think it's very, very underrated. I actually, as crazy as it is, prefer Cross slightly over Trigger, even though they're both amazing in their own right. So that would be really cool. And the big one that I think is the least likely to be true, but if it is, it could be amazing, is a possibility of a remake of Final Fantasy IX. I think that would be more of a straight remake if they did it, a lot less, not like the Final Fantasy VII remake where it's very, very different and it's going to be multiple parts. We don't even know how many yet, if it's going to be 2 or 3 or whatever. I think the Final Fantasy IX remake would probably be more the size of like the Final Fantasy VII remake part 1 kind of thing, like it's probably not as vast of a project, but it could be really good. Years ago it would have been like, heck no, because Final Fantasy IX is not just my favorite Final Fantasy, it's one of very, very few games that I would honestly give a perfect 10 out of 10. Even some of my favorite games, even like like Shenmue 1 and 2, I wouldn't give a perfect 10 out of 10. Final Fantasy IX for me is just the pinnacle of very fantasy-driven JRPGs like style, like from the classic era. It's just the best of everything that came before it on systems like Super Nintendo, and the best of what they were able to do then with the extra space on the CD and what they were able to build off of Final Fantasy 7 and 8. To me, that's the pinnacle. As much as I love a lot of more modern stuff and stuff older, that is the pinnacle of that series for me. So I would have said like, no, don't touch it, but I'd be curious to see a remake. I don't think it obviously could touch the original, but after playing Final Fantasy VII Remake, the first part, and being completely blown away by what they accomplished and really enjoying it in its own right, which I didn't expect to, I have more faith in their ability to accomplish that and maybe kind of make it its own thing. And Final Fantasy IX, just getting that into the news is always good because it's a brilliant game. So we will see what goes on and see if there's any truth to any of that whatsoever, and if there is, like what parts of that are actually true. And I think we'll find that out sooner rather than later. So anyway, be sure to check back, of course, after the Nintendo Direct. If unless it's like a total bomb, like I'm not interested in anything, which is an unlikely scenario, you're going to be seeing a video, so I'll be up here talking about that, really hyped. And I hope you're having a great week.